On today's show, me Slovenci.
Slovenia!
And, some free agency stuff here and there. We'll talk about that too, I guess.
It's the Locked On Podcast Network, your team every day.
I'm Luka Doncic, and this is Locked On Mavericks podcast.
Hey, Dallas Mavericks are NBA champions. Bang! Bang! It's good! And the Mavericks have won the game!
If you don't believe, you shouldn't be here.
And welcome. You are locked on to the Dallas Mavericks. My name is Nick Angstadt, media member and coordinator for the Locked On Podcast Network. And joining me, as always, my co-host, contributor at Mavs.com, the Slovenian Saint, the one more thinking. What you got for me, Isaac Harris?
Luka Doncic, Mike Toby. This Slovenian team, they're so fun to root for. They have so much energy. They love playing with each other. I love everything about this team. I found myself getting so hyped for this team, and I'm like, this isn't the Mavericks. This isn't like, it's just so weird, like being so invested into another team that's not the Mavericks. But here I am. I'm all in. I want them to win gold so bad.
Oh, same. Amazing selection, reliably low prices, all the parts your car will ever need. Visit rockauto.com. Tell them that Locked On sent you. Today's episode is brought to you by Rock Auto. We will obviously get into the free agency stuff. We'll talk about what the Mavericks can still do, what they did do with Reggie Bullock. We'll talk about Sterling Brown. We'll talk about Tim Hardaway Jr. coming back. But for the first chunk here, we're going to be talking about Slovenia. We're going to be talking about Luka Doncic. Reportedly, again, $207 million deal coming his way. That extension for Luka Doncic. He's apparently going to re-sign it. Going to sign it. We've been talking about that for weeks, it seems like. I don't think he'll do it till after the Olympics, but wouldn't be surprised if tomorrow you're like, oh, Luka Doncic agrees to sign a $200 million extension to come back to the Mavericks, or to stay with the Mavericks.
Yeah, we're recording this 11:45 p.m. Central Time on Monday night, as free agency has been going on for a little while now. Slovenia just beat Germany a few hours ago, so here we are, and we just crossed the mark for the rookie extensions to start happening. Trae Young, SGA, some of those names have already been agreeing to their deal. So at this point, Luka hasn't agreed, but it's coming at some point. It's just a matter of time.
So we will definitely get to that. But Slovenia beats Germany. It made it look easy. 94-70 was the final score. There was a little bit worrisome there in the second quarter when Germany came back and got a lead. The Slovenia came out to a pretty quick 10-point lead early in the first quarter. Second quarter, Germany came back and actually got the lead, and basically Slovenia never looked back after that and just took control of it and won by 24, which just, the way that this team could just go and coast to a win is just so great to see. The way that they can shoot the ball, to see that's, the way they we've been saying this the whole time we've been watching them, the way they spread the ball, the way they share the ball, the way that they just go on little runs. Like, they went on a run after Germany took the lead with 5 minutes and 17 seconds left in the second quarter. They were up 32-31. At the half, Slovenia was up 44-37. So just like a little 12-6 run, but those little runs that they can go on just spark something, and all of a sudden everything looks easy for Slovenia and everything looks hard for the other team.
Well, they hit their threes, and I don't know if it's just, hey, we're used to watching Luka play with some players sometimes who don't hit threes, but it feels like these guys hit their threes all the time. And they have so much energy on the court that, even when it got a little feisty here and there, Wagner was, talking his stuff, and I was laughing. I'm like, bro, you suck. Is he even in the league still?
I think Mo Wagner plays for somebody.
But, Isaac Bonga is, I think he's an unrestricted free agent right now.
Mo Wagner was on Orlando last time we saw him, so.
Okay. So, but no, Luka gets his third tech in 4 games, and Luka is Luka. Just seeing the team, I think the bench got a tech at one point. They're still passionate, for each other. Luka gets knocked, down on the ground. The whole team's over there. There's words exchanged and everything. You just love the team. And, it's, tonight, I think, Dragic's brother, he had 27 points.
No. We're not going Dragic's brother. This is Zoran mother effing Dragic. Zoran. You don't give him the Dragic's brother treatment. Come on. Too much respect.
Is that the Power Rangers leader?
Zoran? I don't
Is
think
it
so.
Zoran or Zordon?
Anyway.
Whoa, I lost you on a TV show reference. This is a first. But no, this dude, I mean, literally, I'm like, well, dang, are we going after the wrong Dragic right now? Is this which one are we going after? But I thought he played incredible, especially when he hit that last three of his and he turned around and he did his celebration. There was a video came out afterwards of Goran doing the celebration in front of a TV.
Wearing his own jersey, not Zoran's jersey.
Yes,
wearing his own.
Where'd you get that jersey? I need that. And how good is Mike Tobey? I think that's a question.
Zoran Dragic, 27 points for him, hit 5 of his 7 threes, had 4 assists and 6 rebounds of his own. Just a great game for him. And this is what we were talking about last week, where they have another guy that steps up every single game, and this time it was Zoran.
Who's the Slovenian Steph Curry? The little dude who hits these threes off balance.
Klemen Preplovic.
Okay, so they have the Slovenian Steph Curry. Zoran is like the Slovenian Ginobili. The lefty who's just full of energy and hit threes. We just have all these guys. I don't know what the equivalent of Mike Tobey is, but where would Mike Tobey be on the pecking order of Mavericks bigs?
The Mavs have lots of bigs right now. The Mavericks have 5 centers by my count: Porzingis, Dwight Powell, Willie Cauley-Stein, Boban, and Moses Brown. He's probably above Dwight Powell to me.
Yeah. He impresses me more and more every time I watch him. He gets boards. I love his energy. He can hit threes. He has a weird-looking jump shot, but you know what? It goes in. We watched Marion for all these years, so we can watch any jump shot at that point. I think the bigger question is that, the France game. It's coming.
This is the big thing now. So now that Slovenia has won this game, this was a knockout round game. This was actually a tournament type game. If Slovenia had lost this, they would have been out. And they just played so easy. It just looked so easy for them towards the end there. They really came out, and then the second quarter they're like, oh, we got this. But then they kind of took advantage of Germany, or took them for granted, and then they came out and finished the job. But now Luka and Slovenia will now appear in the winner of France and Italy that has already played probably by the time you're listening or watching this. It's 3 a.m. Central Time here in Texas. And so we think France is going to win that game. We're pretty sure France is going to win that game. So they'll probably play France. And a winner of that game, which will happen 6 a.m. Texas time on Thursday. So Slovenia versus France, maybe Italy, 6 a.m. Thursday. The winner of that game goes to the gold medal game.
Yeah,
we're almost there, guys.
They're in the Final Four. Either way, they're in the Final Four of Olympics. This Slovenia, that's the power of
2 million people in the whole country.
This is the 2011 Dirk Mavericks championship run right here, going for gold.
Dallas, Texas population, just Dallas, 1.3 million. Just Dallas, not even Fort Worth.
That's wild.
Dallas, Fort Worth, 7.5 million. So if you take the population of Dallas, Fort Worth, Slovenia is it's 3 times smaller than that. That's insane. And you're getting top 4 in the Olympics right now for basketball, and possibly even going to the gold medal to play the U.S. or there's somebody
Australia,
else.
Maybe. Nick Batum's seriously, I had to guard Luka for a whole series, and now I have to guard him again.
Now you got to do it again. Any other thoughts on Slovenia? We have Italy, France coming up today, if you haven't watched it already. And then, we'll be watching out for that.
No, that's it. That's it. That's free agency, we're going to talk about for the rest of the pod. We know that's the biggest news right now, but to see what Luka's doing, we're so happy for it. We're all in. I want to see how far they can go. I think they can beat France. It's going to be their toughest game yet, but it should be a blast. And it's going to get super real if USA has another bad game and they get upset either against Spain, and that's already happened, or Australia the next game, and they get beat, then it's like, whoa, now the door's really open, and then the pressure's really on in that France. Because then I think a lot of people would immediately look and say, oh, this France-Slovenia game is for the gold.
Man, absolutely. So we'll be talking about free agency, talk about Reggie Bullock, Sterling Brown, Tim Hardaway Jr. coming back, and all that coming up. But before we do, this episode is brought to you by RockAuto.com. Rock Auto is the best way to go and find car parts for your car. With the ever-increasing number of makes and models, it's impossible to find the parts that you need at a local chain, or at least all the parts you need. But Rock Auto has that. Why would you wait for the person behind the counter to order the parts on their computer, choosing only the brand their warehouse happens to carry, and then it takes you forever to get it anyway? You might as well just order it at RockAuto.com. You have that available anytime, right in your pocket, on your phone, home, on your desktop, laptop. Save time and money using RockAuto.com. Go and explore their easy-to-use website today and find the solutions to your auto part needs. Go to RockAuto.com right now. See all the parts available for your car or truck, right locked on in their How Did You Hear About Us box, so they know that we sent you. Amazing selection, reliably low prices, all the parts your car will ever need. RockAuto.com. All right, Isaac Harris, let's get into free agency. The Mavericks, for the first time in a couple years, it seems, made their moves, or at least some moves, early, and we're not messing around with some of these guys. They re-signed Tim Hardaway Jr. Isaac, what were your thoughts on the deal?
Yeah, I mean, it was super quick. I mean, that was one of the first, things that happened for the Mavs. I think it got reported, right before, before anyone could talk, because there's no negotiation that happens before, that time hits. Somehow, the Bulls and Pelicans had a whole sign and trade deal and everything worked out right within seconds. But, the Tim thing, we knew all along Dallas really wanted to bring him back. And that was even in addition to Lowry, anybody else they were pursuing. They wanted to bring back Tim. And that's why we were kind of thrown off the other day of like, well, dang, is Dallas really are they turning the page on Tim? If they're turning the page on Tim, then there's something bigger they have cooking. So as soon as it came out that they were re-signing Tim, he was coming back. It made all the sense in the world. Tim wanted to come back. Dallas wanted him back. Great fit last year. And immediately for us was, or at least for me, it's under 20. It's under 20 a year. And I was scared that number was going to be creeping around 20. And it made me, now looking back, it's like, did Tim set the market? Did he set the market for a bunch of these guys out there that then their agent said, okay, well, if Tim's getting 18 right now, or basically 18 a year, it looks like he's going to start around 16 a year. If he's basically getting 18 a year, did Evan Fournier's agent say, hello, or Norman Powell, or Gary Trent, or, who is the other person we were talking about too that got around?
Schroder is still out there. He may get that.
Yeah, so even Spencer Dinwiddie looks like right before he hit record, he's going to get around 20 a year. Tim was one of the first ones on that, to where people looked at it and said, Duncan Robinson, didn't he get around 18?
5 years, 90 for Duncan Robinson.
Yeah, so it's like,
no, top shot, front shot podcaster, Duncan Robinson, whatever his podcast is named. I got a big kick out of Woj putting his podcast in his.
See, I should have done that with the church I work at, of saying Isaac Harris, host of Locked On Mavs, has now joined. But no, just to me with Tim coming back under 20 million, especially starting at this 16 number, I thought that was a big win for Dallas.
Absolutely, yeah. 4 years, $72 million. I should have mentioned the price there off the top, but yeah, I thought that was a big win. It may seem like a lot to some people, but like you said, it's $16 million to start, and it'll probably get up to 20 at the end, $20 million at the end of that. So, which I think will be a great deal for Tim. I think that he found a great place here in Dallas. 40% 3-point shooter. All of a sudden, if you had lost Tim, you're without a lot of shooting, and so I think that it was a big win to bring him back at this number. Is it the be all end all? No, but you had to bring him back, or else it was going to be really hard for you to replace him with somebody else, especially in this class, this market.
Just go look at the people who make $18 to $20 million. We went through the list the other day and saying it sounds like a lot until you look at that list, not just from this class, but people who are already making 18 to 20. And you're like, okay, well, he fits in that group. He fits there.
Should we just do it? I mean, I got it right here. We have 18 to
sure.
$20 million. You're looking at Bogdan Bogdanovic, Eric Bledsoe, Eric Gordon. You have Terry Rozier, Ricky Rubio, Karis LeVert, Markelle Fultz,
He's in that.
Joe Harris, Davis Bertans, Derek White. Like all these guys, Tim should be in this group, we think.
Yeah, for sure. Because if you can stand there like a man mountain because you are a man mountain, you get that money. You get that money if you're Tim Hardaway, and and you get the 18 million a year, average out of that, over those 4 years. So I love that for Tim. I love it for the Mavericks. That was a win on that. Then the Sterling Brown news came, and it's like, hey, Jake Fisher, which hats off to Jake Fisher. Incredible job reporting and everything leading up to free agency. I mean, his hit rate was very successful today, and he reported the Sterling Brown thing. We talked a little bit about Sterling Brown on yesterday's podcast, how we were a fan of that low cost signing for kind of a swing for a wing spot that, 42%, 3-point shooter last year, good catch and shoot numbers we went over on yesterday's podcast. So for
do it again. Price, go ahead and go over his numbers again if you have them.
Really? I don't have them in front of me. I have them
he shot 40% from 3 last year. We just think he'll be a good fit. He played with Jason Kidd for that first year in that Jason Kidd was there. At least that half year that Jason Kidd was still in Milwaukee. So he has that connection there. It's just another wing that you add to the group, right? All of a sudden this wing group was going to be really, really thin if you lost Tim, but now you add Sterling Brown to it. You keep Tim. You have Josh Green. You have Dorian still. That's a pretty good looking group of wings. We haven't even gotten to the next name on our list yet, but Sterling Brown was one that we saw coming because Jake Fisher reported it and said that the Mavs were the favorite, and they end up getting him. I think it's going to be a solid deal for the Mavericks, and you just got to take shots at some of these guys, right? Like maybe Sterling Brown won't work out. Maybe it'll be another Josh Richardson type thing, but you're not losing as much because you're not paying him double-digit millions or anything like that. So you're taking a flyer on a guy that has the upside to work really well in a rotation, or he could be out of the rotation. But if he's out of the rotation, that probably means Josh Green played really well. And all of a sudden Josh Green is showing some stuff, right?
That's the thing. It's like, you're not signing Sterling Brown to start. You're signing him to be a wing off the bench that, hey, can you come in and hit a 3-pointer? Can you be our Torrey Craig, another Dorian type of player? And it's competition to Josh Green of saying, hey, we just went out and signed this guy. Can you beat this guy out in camp, like for minutes in the rotation? So I get all of that. Now, the next guy, super excited to bring him on.
Oh, yes. Let's get into that. Reggie Bullock coming to the Dallas Mavericks. We are excited about this one because we have been talking about Reggie Bullock for a couple years now, it seems like. We have mentioned him consistently in our free agency like breakdown kind of deals. 3 years, $30.5 million is the deal for Reggie Bullock. What did you think about the actual number for Reggie Bullock?
Yeah, I was waiting for that number. I think Keith Smith tweeted out before that they were going to, split the two in the MLE, but then the number came out and you're like, oh, okay, well, he's going to get the full MLE. Now,
MLE is the mid-level exception. It's an exception you get if you're a team that has, you're over the cap. So the salary cap came out as $112 million. If your team is paying players that over $112 million, then all of a sudden you have this exception. So you can still add players even though you're at the, you're at the cap. There's still different ways for you to do that with the mid-level exception, the biannual exception, the mid-level, like all that kind of stuff. The mid-level the Mavericks would have, and that's about what it was, 9 million or something like that, 9.5 or 10.
Yeah. Do you want to go over that right now or wait? Just like how the Mavericks are operating right now?
Let's just talk about Reggie Jackson right now. We'll get into that later.
I ain't talking about Reggie Jackson. I'll talk about
Reggie Bullock.
But no, yeah. So as soon as we saw the number of, around 9 to 10 a year, it's like, okay, he's going to be the full MLE if they stay operating over the cap. For me, it's like, one, he was a steal coming out of college because he went to North Carolina. But I love his defense. I love his shooting. I was looking up synergy stuff today. This was one for you. I tweeted it out. So sorry if you saw it on Twitter. A minimum of 150 unguarded catch and shoot possessions last year. Minimum of 150. Here's the top 5 ranked by field goal percentage. Joe Harris, number 1 at 59%, which is crazy. Catch and shoot shots. 59% of those.
Catch and shoot threes or just catch and shoot shots?
Just catch and shoot shots. Joe Harris is number 1. Duncan Robinson, number 2 at 48%. Jay Crowder, number 3 at 47%. Bojan Bogdanovic, number 4 at 45%, and number 5 on that list is Reggie Bullock at 44%. He's literally one of the best volume catch and shoot shooters in the NBA, and he can play defense. He's 30 years old. He has some injury questions over the past few years, but as far as fit, as far as putting people around Luka Doncic, and as far as somebody that's like in an MLE type of deal, sign me up for Reggie Bullock. Solid move for Dallas.
Yeah, since 2015, basically, when he was with Detroit, 40% from 3 on 4.6 per game, and that's over 287 games. Like that's a sample size right there. That tells you, and Isaac's number that he just mentioned tells you this guy can hit the 3. So all of a sudden, you've added a 3-point shooter. He's not going to be a pull-up 3-point shooter, right? He's not going to come in and dribble around and pull up and do that kind of stuff. But he's going to be a really good catch-and-shoot 3-point shooter for you. Exactly what this Mavericks team needs. If Tim Hardaway Jr. is having an off night, then Reggie Bullock maybe is the guy that hits 6 threes or hits 4 threes in a game that you need in a game like that. And so, or if Maxi's down, if Dorian's down, right? Like it's law of averages sometimes with these 3-point shooters. You just need somebody to be on at some point, and they add another guy that's on most of the time. And I think that that's an incredible ad for the Mavericks.
And how many times this past year, I know Josh, amplified this because they were trading for each other, but we're like, man, we missed Seth's shooting.
Yeah.
It's like, look at, they made basically 4 additions so far, on the first night, Boban and these 3 guys. It's like, look at these 3 wings that they added. If you want to include Tim in that, Sterling Brown, Reggie Bullock, all 3 of those guys, 40% or above 3-point shooters. It's like they're surrounding Luka Doncic with shooting. We need shooters around Luka. What are we watching right now in the Olympics? We're watching Luka with shooters all around him, even Mike Toby hitting threes. It's like, this is what happens when you surround Luka with shooters, and this is what Dallas is doing. They're going out and getting shooters.
Yeah, all of a sudden you start looking up and down this roster and you say, okay, you have Luka, who's, a 3-point shooter. You have Tim Hardaway Jr., Bullock, Sterling Brown, Maxey, Dorian. Those are all guys that are in like that 37 to 40% 3-point shooting. Like that's awesome. You have Brunson, who can get there and will definitely get there, we think. Good shooter. No one's helping off of Brunson. And then you have Tyrell Terry maybe coming up and being a good 3-point shooter. Trey Burke was a good 3-point shooter. He might be on the roster, may not be. And then you have Kristaps Porzingis, and like hopefully Kristaps Porzingis, he's at least a credible shooter, right? Now, maybe he's not 40% or something like that, but he is a guy that spaces the floor and that. And so all of a sudden you're like, okay, who on this roster doesn't shoot? And it's like it's just the 4 centers, and Boban does actually shoot some threes, and we've seen Willie hit a couple threes, not maybe credibly, but all of a sudden this roster, besides Josh Green, doesn't really have a bad 3-point shooter in the mix.
No, they don't. And I mean, I think Reggie Bullock's your upgrade over Josh Richardson in a way. He doesn't give you the playmaking over that, but
that's what you wanted him to. That's what you wanted Josh Richardson to be, really.
Yeah. I think what you wanted from Josh is a little bit more playmaking than what you're going to ask from Bullock. But what you're going to get from Bullock is good defense, and you're going to get good 3-point shooting, and that's 3-and-D world. Solid. Is you need all of those guys in Dallas right now.
Solid ad for the Dallas Mavericks. So coming up, let's talk about their free agency as a whole right now, what they can do, and maybe what they have missed out on so far. We're recording this around midnight Central Time in Dallas, Texas. So we'll talk about all that coming up. But before we do, betonline.ag is the perfect way to put down some money on sports. They have all kinds of stuff. You can bet on martial arts. You can go, I have no idea what any of this means, but you can go bet on martial arts if you want to. They have point spreads for that. They have point spreads on MMA. So many point spreads on MMA. So much. A lot of Olympic stuff you can get into if you want to. The horizontal bar, men's. You can pick Hashimoto, Kizizono, Nagari, Malone. You feeling any of those? You feeling any of those names?
Malone's kind of an underdog.
He's plus 600, so
yeah,
you think possibly that guy could possibly come out. If you want to bet on diving, if you want to bet on golf, karate, marathon swimming, you can bet on so many different things. Skateboarding, soccer, climbing. Climbing is a sport in the Olympics. Did not know that, but you can go bet on that on betonline.ag. Use the promo code LOCKEDON. Get a 50% welcome bonus to your first deposit. BetOnline, your online sportsbook experts. All right, Isaac Harris, let's get into free agency. So we've been talking about the additions, quote unquote, with bringing back Tim Hardaway Jr., the addition of Reggie Bullock, Sterling Brown. We're into those additions. We like those. I want to call him Sterling K. Brown, right? I just want to call him that. And that's
I love Sterling K.
one of the greatest episodes of Brooklyn Nine-Nine, Sterling K. Brown's. Sterling K. Brown's.
He's from
appearance.
This Is Us.
Well, he was on Brooklyn Nine-Nine first, I think.
Probably.
He's also in Mrs. Maisel. Oh, he's in a lot of stuff. But so now, what have the Dallas Mavericks done, and what can they still do? What did you think about what they've done so far in day one? And now it's midnight here in Texas, so things could still be happening. We still think the Mavericks do have a move, but what did you think overall about what they did on the first day?
Yeah, they missed out on Lowry. I mean, that's the big thing. I mean, you can't. I mean, we can be excited about the additions of Bullock and Sterling Brown, and we love bringing Boban back. Let's do it. Tim had a good number. Like all the deals that they made night one, I think are solid deals. They're just not the home run. It's okay to be happy with those. Like it's like they hit a double, right? Like it's not. They didn't strike out. They didn't do anything. They didn't lose all these people. And it's like where we're sitting here with no deals and Tim walked and we didn't get Lowry. And it's like, this is miserable. What is happening? Like we're not New Orleans right now. So they actually hit a double. It's just that it wasn't the home run that you were wanting in a Kyle Lowry or a bigger name. Now, obviously Kawhi's still there right now. We think he goes back to Clippers. Let's see how some other things unfold with DeRozan, Dragic, whatever. So it all rotated around Kyle Lowry. He goes to Miami. The natural thing for Dallas and all of us right now is, well, what happens with Goran Dragic? Dragic, Achua going to Toronto. Achua. What'd I say? Achua. There you go.
Bless you.
Bless you. He goes to Toronto. Will he get bought out? Will they try to reroute him to Dallas? It is kind of weird. We haven't heard any of the details on that. It seems like they're talking to other teams. It seems like they're trying to figure all that stuff out because we haven't heard anything about the Kyle Lowry details besides that he's just going to Miami.
And it could still happen that the Mavericks could be that third team in there, where Dragic is rerouted to the Mavericks. Dwight Powell and Trey Burke, or Dwight Powell and Willie Cauley-Stein probably will be routed to Toronto, and all of a sudden that becomes a 3-team deal, and boom, all of a sudden you have, that works out for the Mavericks in a big way.
Yeah, and I think if there was some type of framework on that, Dallas would have to try to probably add a little bit to that because you're asking Toronto to take on an extra $11 million next year to where Dragic would be an expiring contract this year. And if you're saying, hey, we'll give you Dwight Powell and Willie Cauley-Stein, if Toronto's like, okay, well, cool. That means we're going to pay Dwight another year after this year. Where does he fit on the roster and all of that? You might have to sweeten that deal a little bit. But for Dragic, all the reports, we're seeing the same thing that, you guys are seeing, that he would like to play with Luka and, Igor here in Dallas. Remember, Dallas had their chance to get Dragic before. They chose not to. They wanted to go the Derrick Jones Jr. Olynyk route, but that was the past regime. That was the past decision makers. How does this group, how does Nico, how does Jason Kidd, how do they view, Dragic in Dallas? That's the big thing. I think a lot of if we were making predictions right now, we would think that the Dragic thing would probably happen, that Dallas goes out and that's their secondary playmaker. And I think then it's like, how does the fan base feel about that? If they go out and they trade right now Dwight Powell, Willie Cauley-Stein to Toronto for Goran Dragic, and they walk away from free agency with Dragic, Bullock, Sterling Brown, Tim on back on a $18 million a year, basically, Boban. Like, is the fan base saying, hey, we hit a triple, we hit a double? Or, I mean, some of the fans are just going to say, hey, we struck out, or it's a single, whatever.
They're going to be mad no matter what.
Yeah, I think at that point it's a double or a triple. It's not the home run, but you didn't strike out either.
No, I think if you get Dragic, then all of a sudden you check some of the boxes that you want, right? You checked the box of, we need some wing defenders, we need some shooters, we need a secondary creator. Boom, you checked all those boxes. You didn't improve your defense too much. You didn't get that next level, like all-star type player. Did you improve the number 2 and 3 in the rotation spot, like with Dragic and maybe Bullock? Like maybe you did, but those you probably didn't like definitely stamp it in. You've improved on those 2 rotation spots. And so in that sense, I can understand that people considering that a failure because you just didn't check every single box, which is hard to do in an off season. Everybody's trying to do the same thing. And sometimes you go out there and you just completely like screw the pooch on some stuff. And I don't think the Mavericks have done that quite yet, but if they do add Dragic, I think that should be some level of a win. Not necessarily like an overwhelming win, but like, yeah, that was good. Took a little step forward. And with Porzingis hopefully coming back and being all-star Porzingis, that's the huge step forward that you really need.
You have a second person you can run offense through if you get Dragic. There's obviously health stuff. He's older, all of that. I get it. It's not like you're handing Dragic $25 million a year for 4 years. You would have
wanting him to play 35 minutes a game,
Exactly. So now let's operate real quick just for fans, and let's try to clarify, like, do they have cap space? Do they not? What are they doing right now? If they take in Reggie Bullock and Sterling Brown into these exceptions, they put Bullock into the mid-level, they put Sterling Brown into the biannual, then that means they're operating over the cap. So they don't have cap space if they do that. Okay. Yeah. So you can't have cap space. So that means they're still JJ Redick cap hold to keep them over, the thing. They took Tim Hardaway Jr. into their cap space. So they're operating without cap space over the cap so they can put these players into these exceptions.
And it's a little bit like, we've learned this from like the former president recently of like, you're operating as a team getting a loss so that you can get some benefits in other ways, right? So the Mavericks would act as a team that, we're using all of our cap space so that we can get to some of these exceptions. This is why Isaac and I have talked about the order of operations in the things that the Mavericks do is so important right now, this very moment, because if they just went out and did all these things, they signed Reggie Bullock into the cap space and Sterling Brown into the cap space, then all of a sudden, like, you don't get those extra like exceptions and things. You just get those guys and that's it. But now if they do it this way, there's other ways that they can add talent.
Exactly. And so by operating over the cap and putting these guys into these exceptions, that means they're still holding on to that traded player exception, which is around that $10 million mark. To where a lot of people thought, hey, as soon as they made the deal with Boston, they got this, traded player exception. Well, it's like, okay, well, they're just going to renounce that to get cap space. You would have had to do that if you're going to get Kyle Lowry for $30 million a year. They would have had to, do that, but they didn't. So now this is the route it seems like they're taking. There's still a world in which they do exactly what you just said. Well, I go and they're, Bullock, Brown, Boban, everybody's into the cap space and they have like $1 or $2 million in cap right now. It doesn't look like that's the case. It looks like they're operating over the cap. So that leaves you, we wanted to say that because right now you can't do the trade for Dragic and DeRozan cap space for 15 to 20 million. That's just, you can't do that because you already have these other guys that they're going into the exceptions because you don't have cap space. So there's 3 ways you can add players to your team right now. It's a sign and trade route, it's a normal trade route, or it's what's the third one I'm thinking of? Oh, the trade, you absorb somebody into the traded player exception.
Yeah.
That's the 3 ways.
Josh Richardson exception.
Yeah. Outside of like minimum contracts, all of that. That's the 3 main ways you can, do something. So they could go out right now, do the trade for Dragic, bring in Dragic, and then scour the league of saying, okay, is there another player out there that we can absorb? They have to be under contract already. You can't sign a player into a traded player exception. You have to go out and grab somebody from another team, absorb them into that. So that's where they're at right now.
So at this point, the way that we think they're operating, DeRozan seems like a non-possibility.
Unless it's a sign and trade. I mean, that's the route you'd have to go at DeRozan is sign and trade route. What money is he wanting? If it's around 20, could you convince, and he wants to come to Dallas, could you convince San Antonio to do Dwight, the same type of deal that you do for Dragic? Would you have to put Brunson in that, or a protected first in the future? Would you even want to do that? Or would it be bigger? And it's like Porzingis for DeRozan and like Derek White. That's the route that you're probably getting DeRozan is only through a sign and trade route. And it doesn't look like you can pull off, unless Porzingis is in the deal. It doesn't look like you can pull off some type of DeRozan and Dragic, which I've seen some people throw out there.
Yeah, but for DeRozan, though, the options are quite limited now, right? Like there's no one else with space that's going to be able to straight up sign him for the 25 or whatever he's going to want. It's going to have to be one of these deals like the sign and trade type things, which we saw Miami do. Miami could have gotten the straight up cap space for Kyle Lowry, but they ended up doing the sign and trade for him anyway. So there are other ways for him to go and find another team, but the options for him, at least right now as we're recording this, are drying up real quick to get the money and the place that he wants to go.
It looks like for DeRozan, he has a couple options. There's probably a line in the sand that San Antonio's drawn out for him, saying this is how much we'll pay you. We'll go up to. So he probably has that. Has in his back pocket. He's probably talking to other teams like the Clippers. Let's just say Dallas or whatever it is. And it's like, okay, we can, even if it's a sign and trades out there, it's like, hey, we can do 20 million, but it's going to have to be a sign and trade with San Antonio. They're going to have to work with us, or it's like the full MLE for like a really good team like the Lakers or Miami or whoever it is.
Which is like $10 million.
I know. It's like if you get DeRozan for like $9 or $10 million, it's just a steal. I don't care how you feel about DeRozan. That's a steal to get him for that amount. So that looks like the route for DeRozan right now. Because I mean, the Knicks have obviously spent their money. A lot of people have been spending their money, but we'll see if a team swoops in. I mean, by the time you listen to this, we could wake up tomorrow to DeRozan to the Clippers or whoever it is in a sign and trade. So,
did you get got by the fake Shams today?
I didn't know.
A couple people got by the fake Shams saying DeRozan the Clippers was a done deal, and we were like, "What? How did that happen?" Couple of players left on the board that we'll talk about. Spencer Dinwiddie seems like he's going to the Wizards now. So that's why we haven't really got into that one. That one seems to be off the table. Dennis Schroder is still out there. I mean, I guess he could come back to the Lakers, but that would be an incredible tax number, I think, for them, for the number Dennis Schroder wants. But that could be another option for the Mavericks if the Dragic thing doesn't work out.
How's he feeling right now, turning down that 5 for 90?
About like Nerlens Noel did.
So when you do a sign and trade
not
deal,
today, Nerlens Noel when he turned on the Mavericks deal years ago.
Yeah, shout out to Nerlens. I was happy for him signing a 3-year deal with New York. But with Schroder, when you do a sign and trade, which the Lakers are probably going to try to do with wherever he goes, what's he asking for? Like, it has to be a 3-year deal. When you do a sign and trade, it has to be a 3-year deal. So it's like, yeah.
And he's got to be worth the Tim Hardaway, Gary Trent, Fournier, Norman Powell special of like, 16 to 20 a year, right? Like he's got to be in that range at least.
I guess so. And so, would you, if they approached Dallas and said, hey, would you, Schroder, Dallas, 3 for 45, 3 for 50, somewhere through there, 16, 17 range, and it's a sign and trade for Dwight and Trey Burke. Like, would the Lakers want Dwight Powell and Trey Burke? Maybe. I don't know. I mean,
I don't know why they wouldn't just keep Schroeder at that point, but unless Schroeder
I know that's the
really
thing.
wants to leave, it's
I don't
really
think
weird spot.
Dwight Powell and Trey Burke, they've never played for the Lakers before, so it looks like that's the prerequisite to sign with the Lakers this offseason.
You have to have played for the Lakers at some point before 2018. It has to be 2015.
Just know that I'm soaking in this Lakers offseason. I'm
what a weird
thoroughly
offseason.
Oh, I'm enjoying all of it.
What's other people name? John Collins is a guy that's like still out there.
Talking about losing leverage.
I was gonna say he may have just lost the most leverage of anybody because at the beginning of free agency they said that Atlanta and John Collins are not close to contract talks, and then everybody's cap space dried up. And now what does he do? How does he go out and get the deal he actually wants? So that's an interesting name that has been linked to the Mavericks that has still not gone or stayed anywhere.
Atlanta's like, so 80 million, 90. You don't have anybody else that can offer you that now. So
a couple other smaller names, I guess. Patty Mills is Patty Mills, Danny Green, Rudy Gay. Some of these like veteran type guys. JJ Redick still on the Mavericks. We think he's going to go to the Nets, but that's not out of the question that JJ Redick could come back. Especially if the Mavericks are acting as an over the cap team, they sign him sign him to go over the cap, right? They could still do that.
I think he's I think he's on the Nets next year.
We think so, but we haven't heard anything about him. What do you think about Oubre, Danny Green, Patty Mills, some of these other names that are still out there?
I like some of these guys. Dallas seems like they like Kelly Oubre. I mean, I would like him for a cheaper cost, but once again, it's like outside the minimum. You've already used your exceptions. You're operating over the cap. It's gonna have to be a sign and trade at this point. So I just don't know what the number would be for some of these guys. And then are you convinced that you'd have to convince their past teams to take on, one of your contracts, which is, I mean, would the fan base riot if you did a sign and trade for Maxey and Oubre?
Oh, I would. I personally
You would. I know.
I personally would
burn
because
this pod to the ground.
Personally, I love Maxey as a person, and I love him on the Mavericks. But
So like it's those type of things that it looks like the next bigger addition for the Mavericks will come via sign and trade. Unless they still have that traded player exception. They could, swoop into. There's still stuff that has to be ironed out. I mean, like the Kawhi stuff, we got to see Ben Simmons trade at some point. Like there's some other moving parts. If DeRozan does a sign and trade or they swoop in, so they can still take some, players as a third team into that traded player exception. That's the ideal route at this point, right? I think we would both prefer DeRozan over Dragic right now, right?
Yes.
So let's just say they get Dragic. I don't want them to stop there. I would love for them to still scour the league and say, okay, how can we get another wing from, with that traded player exception? How could we hop into a Ben Simmons for CJ McCollum trade and say, give us Derrick Jones Jr.? How could they find a player like that to take into that space, a Larry Nance Jr., which I don't know if he can, I don't know what that traded player exception, the exact number on that is now after the Richardson Moses Brown thing. I get confused on that, but it's either 9 or it's 9.6 or 10 or whatever it is. But
yep. The Sixers just waived George Hill, another guy. He probably is going to go to a Nets or a Lakers or something like that. But an interesting name that may be still out there. That's where the Mavericks are. Okay, another thing that I've thought about today: the Mavericks have 5 centers. They've got to do something with these. Now we think the obvious one is the Powell, Willie Cauley-Stein sign and trade for Dragic. We think that's the obvious one, but that's not a super appealing package to get back.
Yeah,
in a
I
deal.
will say the only thing about that is you're losing both out of your center group. You're losing both of your rim runners, and I don't know what that means, but like, I'm not ready just to pencil in Moses Brown as a 20-minute guy off the bench. It's like Moses Brown, Boban, Maxey, and KP at that point. Like none of them are your rim rolling type of fives that we like seeing playing with Luka. That's why I would personally prefer it be like a Dwight and Trey Burke for like a Dragic, something like that, to where you at least have.
See, I think our friend Mavs CBA told me that you can't do Powell and Burke. It has to be something else because the money just doesn't exactly line up for a trade like that.
Okay, I was gonna say
it was like just too small for it to be that deal. That's why I keep saying Willie Cauley-Stein.
So something else. I know we're just keep on going at this point. The Summer League roster was released today.
Oh yeah, I had so many notes on this today. Yes, Summer League roster was released today. The names that you're used to. Josh Green was one we were a little surprised on. I was happy that Josh Green was added to that because we thought possibly he wouldn't be there because of Australia.
Yeah, well, Jason Kidd actually said in that presser that he wasn't going to play, but then actually in the press release today about the roster, it said even though he's playing in Tokyo, he does have a chance to play in the Summer League, which is super encouraging. But the big takeaway from the Summer League roster was
I was gonna go around the rest of it first before we. So Tyrell Terry's still gonna be on the Summer League roster. Nate Hinton's still gonna be. We have the 4 guys that they added after the draft: Ron Hunt, EJ Onu, Eugene Omarui, Karlik Jones. You have 4 guys that I've never heard of that are added to the roster, which is normal Summer League roster behavior. And then the big news from today, at least Summer League and Mavs two-way and end of the bench news: Tyler Bey is not part of the Mavs Summer League roster. And according to Brad Townsend, quote, "I'm told that Tyler Bey was not extended a qualifying offer, which makes him an unrestricted free agent. Bey and Hinton were 2-way contracts last season. Hinton is on the Summer League roster. Bey is not, and he is an unrestricted free agent." So
I disagree with this.
My Bey watch has ended.
After Josh Green, I would have kept Tyler Bey over Hinton and Tyrell Terry, and
I would have as well.
Yeah, I was bummed.
Well, maybe not over Terry. I'm still in on Terry. Definitely over Hinton though,
hands down. But either way, I hope he latches on somewhere. I'd like to see.
He could still come back to the Mavericks, but it just is weird that he's not on the Summer League roster.
Yeah, Moses Brown not on the Summer League roster too. That's something some of us were kind of thinking like, would he play? Would he not?
He's had a 2020 game in the NBA. He's too good now for Summer League.
Oh my gosh. The Moses Brown hype is getting out of hand.
I don't see it too much from people, but
I'm excited for him. I just feel like it's getting a little overblown, but oh well, this is where we're at. Day 2 of free agency today, as you listen to this. I think Spain and USA are tied at halftime, which is fun. We'll see.
USA was down most of the second quarter too by like 10.
But I think the big thing, for us is like what happens with DeRozan, what happens with Dragic. Are there still some like bigger trades out there to teams? Like when will the Ben Simmons shoe drop?
That's a big one.
Surely they don't go into training camp. When does that happen? Does that shake up some things too? So there's still a lot of names still left and a lot of fun stuff that could happen on day 2.
A lot of fun stuff, guys. We appreciate you listening to the podcast. We will be here through the rest of the week. We are a 5-day-a-week Dallas Mavericks podcast. Guys, thanks so much for listening to Locked On Mavs.
So...
Boom.